Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with award-winning journalist and editor Stacy Barnes. She has published more than 1,000 articles over the course of her career. She grew up in the heart of the Bible Belt, and she considers her faith and family most important to her. After attempting to forge her own path for years, she finally decided to try in God's way and has found life to be much sweeter since. Her varied interests include shopping, real estate, traveling, spoiling her grandbabies, and eating as much ice cream as she can. She now resides in Texas with her husband of 30 years and their 2 Boston Terriers. Enjoy this interview.
Hey, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out for the show today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to do it. And one thing that you don't know about me that I'm going to talk about just barely is this, or just a little bit, is that I'm a real estate agent as well as an author. So, because I've listened to some of your podcasts and I know you ask some questions that make it, I haven't talked about it in other podcasts. This will be the first one. But anyway, that's just part of what I do, who I am.
I love it. Yeah, and it adds to the whole of everything. So we will touch on all of that. So again, thank you for taking a minute out for the show. And I want to begin our conversation with, kind of the big thing that we've all lived through for the last 3.5 years or so, which has been the pandemic. How did you do? How did you get through it? And how did it change you?
So for me, it was interesting because I was a real estate agent and, real estate, and I live in Texas. So it was one of those things that everything stopped for a minute, but it was also one that really opened up quicker here because now we didn't have as many people, buying and selling homes because people were scared to have people into their home or everything. But they did put protocols in place quickly with the shoe covers and the masks and gloves and all of that and hand sanitizer. And as long as we were following protocol, we were able to continue working. But again, it wasn't as busy. So I really got to slow down some. And I have 4 children, and I'm super blessed that 3 of them live in the DFW area where I live. And so I was able to stay connected to them fairly well. And then my son, who is an actor, and he lives in New York. And so he and his girlfriend actually came here and lived with us for about 4 months. And that was really, a great time that we got to just really reconnect and spend time together. So for me, it was almost like a time of connection. I really got to unplug from my real estate business, which was very, very busy. And that's when I actually decided that I was going to move forward with writing this book because this book was something that had been on my heart for many, many years. And life was super busy and I just didn't really stop and do it. So during the pandemic, I really took that time, wrote my outline, started in on the chapters, and really got a big chunk of it done during that time.
So I guess that's my next question is to get a full view of what you do for a living. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of grade school kids at career day. Let's say they're in the 3rd grade, and one of the curious kids looks up and asks you, hey, what do you do for a living? How would you answer that child?
Well, I wear a lot of hats. As a real estate agent, people think that all we do is to help people buy houses and sell houses. But really at the heart of what we do is we really help people figure things out. We really solve their problems because we have to know the areas. We have to know what's happening. I personally help a lot of people move from other states and other cities. And the area that I live in is so big. There are just so many different choices that I have to be able to help them figure out what's the best fit for them. I also find myself, I negotiate for people. Sometimes I'm their counselor, their therapist. There's a lot of hats that I wear. And then as a writer, I feel like, I'm telling stories, but I'm also solving problems because I think about, what could I do? Like, what story could I tell? Like, what's a problem that somebody has and what's a story that I could tell that could help them? And so at the heart of it, I love helping people, and I really help people with both hats that I wear.
So let's go back to the beginnings of your life here. That's quite a diversified career palette. Tell me where you were born and raised and what these seeds that were put into you to kind of have a right, left brain approach to things. I mean, you got the real estate and then you got writing, which is very creative. How did all of those become who you are today?
I was born and raised in Oklahoma, and my family, my parents still live there, and that's still home. But I was raised in a Christian family, and we were very active and involved in our church, and we were there every time the doors were open, and so that is really a part of who I was, who my family was. I always was drawn to the creative side. I always wanted to be a singer. That was kind of what I thought I would probably do. I thought I might start down that way. But around, I would say sometime in late, maybe early high school, in ninth grade, I specifically remember a teacher pulling me aside, and she really loved a story I had written. And she told me, you should really consider a career in writing. You just have such a talent for it. And that really put that seed of that thought in my mind. And so actually when I did go to school, I did study journalism and English. Those are the things that I really liked, and the creative writing and all of that. And so I think that's kind of where all that stems from. But I'm also a very realistic person, and sometimes I don't know. I don't think anybody ever just thinks like, hey, I want to be a real estate agent. That's what I want to do. But it's something that I was always so interested in, and something that I really enjoyed. And so I found that to be a way that I could help people. It's a business that I could do just from home. I don't have to, I can really run it from my car. And so it just really worked for me, and it gives me also some flexibility to be able to work on my writing, which is actually kind of, I've done it. I can't think of a time when I wasn't writing throughout my life. I've always done it in some capacity. Even when I was the PTA mom, I was writing the PTA newsletter, whatever it was. It's just been something, it's just in me. I've always done. This is the first time I've really taken a break to just focus on a book. I was a journalist and a newspaper editor for years in Oklahoma. But this is the first time I've said, you know what, I'm going to write this book. So that's kind of a long path to get here.
Yeah, for sure. So what was one of the first books that you read when you were young that really gave you that love of reading or that desire to write more?
Oh, so I love all genres of writing and reading, and it's funny. We would read the little Harlequin romance books. My favorite series of books is Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I love those series, and I just think that it's so funny because I have a weird sense of humor. So I just think that it's so much fun. I used to read Piers Anthony, and now I love Kristen Hanna. So I just, I think my tastes have changed throughout the years, but those are the ones that really come to mind.
So what was the first piece you wrote, whether it was just pure writing or journalism, where you thought, wow, this is good, this is something that I need to do more of, and it really felt like you kind of arrived and that was kind of your calling? Well,
the first piece that I wrote, I don't know that I can pinpoint one. I mean, other than the thing I already told you about, I remember writing that specific story, and I remember standing in her room and her talking to me about it, because that was just such a moment for me that the light just kind of came on, and that's what really put it into my mind. And then just over the years, I would keep getting that reinforcement. People really liked my writing, and they would come to me and they would ask me, to write things for them or to edit things for them. And then, when as an adult, so I had my children and I stayed home with them until my youngest was in second grade. And so my daughter was in high school. And I went to work. For the first time I started, using that journalism, and I went to work as a staff writer at a newspaper. And I really started to see that, hey, I knew I could write, but this was like a whole new thing for me. And so really I started getting a lot of really good feedback, and I really started growing that way. And so I knew that, this is something I can make a career out of. It's just a matter of that's something you have to really take time, and you have to have time to step away and think and be creative. And when you're running a busy household, and for a time my husband lived in Texas while we were living in Oklahoma because his company had transferred him, so we were kind of doing the back and forth thing. So, for a time it was really difficult and busy, and I just didn't have time to really let my creative side flow. And so now I'm kind of at that point that I can. So I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. So who's been kind of a hero or an inspiration for you in your life?
I would say so I wouldn't say I have heroes, but I do have people that have inspired me in my life in different, different aspects. So like my grandparents, for instance, on my mom's side, they were very strong Christian believers. They took us to church. They modeled what a Christian marriage looked like. They had that character. They were just good, solid people. They helped others. They cared about others. And I always looked up to that, and I always appreciated that part of it. And of course my parents, did that too, but you expect your parents to pour into you, that's kind of a given. They have to do that, right? But as my grandparents, they really made me feel important and that I was, worth spending time with. And I think that was really wonderful. And then I have an ex-mother-in-law that is the most generous, giving person that I have ever known. And I always look up to that particular, part of her, and I just really want to emulate that in my life as well. So I would say that she, in that respect, is somebody that I really admire, and she's really inspired me to be, more giving and open and generous.
So speaking of inspirational figures, if you can meet anybody that's alive on the planet right now and spend some time with them, get to know them a little bit, who would that be?
Okay, so they have to be alive.
Well, no, we can open the door to everyone. Yeah, anyone and everyone.
I mean, part of me wants to say, that, and I feel like everybody that's in my world will probably say the same thing. Oh, I'd love to sit and talk to Jesus. But, I'm going to see Jesus in heaven, and I'm going to talk to him there. And so I feel like that, my grandma, I'm going to talk to them there. So I think, if I wanted to really kind of pick somebody's brain about writing, I would probably talk to Kristen Hanna, because like I said, I love the way she develops her stories and everything. And I would be interested to just kind of know what her process is and what she does. And, if she's taking things from real life, or if this is all completely imaginary. So I think I would probably sit down and talk to her.
Every day you wake up, you have things that you want to do and accomplish and evolve. And I'm curious, what is that fuel for you every day? To wake up, to be who you are, to do what you want to do? How does that work for you?
That hands down would be my kids. My family is the thing for me, that I really want to show them that, that if you work hard and you dream big, that you can really accomplish things, and that, not to be afraid to go out and do things and to try. And so for me, and I just always want to make them proud. So for me, I would definitely say that is that. And then that Christian side of me is that I just always want to point other people to Christ. And so in everything I do, I want to glorify God. And so I think that's that other piece that is part of everything that I do as well.
Of all of the things that you've done and written, homes you've sold, what's been your best fan letter, best customer response that you've ever gotten that always puts a smile on your face?
So, I would say, recently with my book, I've had some amazing things that some people have reached out to tell me how it has really impacted them, and that it's actually helped them really get back to the Lord and get back in their Bible. It has encouraged them. And originally when I wrote it, it was for, it's really, the audience in my mind was always women. But I've even had women that said, hey, I'm giving this to my son. His wife left him, and they have 3 kids under the age of 3. and he's really spiraling, and I think that this could encourage him. So that has been amazing. I would say the story that warms my heart a lot is I had a client. She called me crying and very upset, and I didn't know her. Out of the blue, she calls me and she said that she was actually renting. They were living in Section 8 housing, and she said that she had 4 children. Her and her husband were both working 2 jobs, and she said they keep turning the hot water off. Some days they turn all the water off, which, we don't even know how that was possible. But she was just like, I can't live like this anymore. I have to get my family out of this house. And she's like, nobody will help me. Nobody cares, because I'm a renter, there's no money in that. And she's like, I really want to be in a new house. And it was just a few weeks before Christmas. And I said, we are getting you a house before Christmas. That's going to happen. And so I went to work and I just started calling and talking to people. And I mean, the man's credit score was in the low 400s. And her credit score luckily was good, but it was a lot of legwork and talking to other agents and explaining their whole situation and finally finding that person who said, hey, I'll average those scores together, and as long as they are, have these things are good, we'll work with them. And we found them a house and got them in a house before Christmas. And that is my favorite thing that I've ever done because it changed that family's life. And it was amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what's been the best advice that you've ever gotten?
I remember, and I will never forget this, and it's actually kind of my mantra now because I was, as a writer, I would cover city council meetings. And one of the things that, my publishers, if it's salacious, they love it, right? And if it's sometimes what we think is news as a person and what the media wants to feed you is different, right? And so she just was very upset over a piece that I had written that exposed, I think, people's salaries and stuff. And she didn't think that should be in the media. And we were having a conversation, and she just looked at me and she said, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I really took that to heart because I agree. And I don't agree with her that what was published was wrong, but I do agree with her that just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do it.
Let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into a much younger version of you, say a senior in high school version, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained throughout your life, all of the things that you've done and overcome. What advice would you give your younger self?
I would say, girl, you need to learn how to work out and watch what you eat because your metabolism is going to stop and you are going to be in trouble. So that's the first thing I would say, and that's no joke. That is the first thing I would say. And then, honestly, I would tell myself, like, don't get so caught up in, like, being everything to everybody else and giving so much of yourself to everybody else that you lose yourself and you forget who you are. Because that really happened to me, and then if your whole life is about giving to others and like you're just pouring into your kids and everything, they all leave you, and then you're alone, and you have to figure out, who am I, and who is this person I used to be, and where is she, and what do I want now, and and it was kind of a journey, but I think that would be a good advice for myself to remember.
So of all of the things that we've discussed that you've done and become and overcome everything, if you look back on all of it, what are you the proudest of?
I would say my family, my kids for sure. They're all, amazing. They're all contributing members of society. They all have their own thing. I have 2 that are in the arts. I have one that's a professional jazz musician. I have one who is an actor. I have one who's in finance, and he does the whole finance thing. And I have one who designs clothes and stuff and does things for people. And then she also stays home and raises her kids and works on the side. So they just all are doing their thing, and and I'm just so proud of what they've done. And, if you read my book and my story of like domestic abuse and divorce and all of the things that I went through to get there and to have the kids, be okay on the other side of that, because I got them out like super early, and they've had a steady, I've had my husband for almost 31 years now, and he's just a rock, and he's been amazing, even when those children, even two of those children are not his, he treats them like they are. So I just think that our family has been really blessed, and that I've been super blessed to be their mom.
So from a journalistic perspective, if you could pick any event in history to have been there as a journalist to cover, what event would you love to have covered?
There's quite a few, but I really think what I would love to be a fly on the wall, and maybe, a journalist. I didn't even think of it from a journalist standpoint, but to be there when they were like hammering out what they're going to put in the Constitution, when they're all in there, and, everybody was coming from a different angle, and they were having to come together to form this new government. I think that would have been amazing to see.
Yeah, certainly would have been. So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you ultimately run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Well, obviously, I'm a mom and a Gigi, and I have 6 grandkids. I have a husband. I'm a wife. But, honestly, like just me, like just thinking about who I am on the inside, I mean, I'm a realist. I'm super sarcastic. I love to just like joke around and have fun. I love God. I love people, and I really I'm very driven. I can almost be a workaholic. I'm one of those people that, I love my people and I want to see them, but I could go for days and days and days just like in my office, just working, just writing, just, connecting with my clients as needed. But so I have to really remember to unplug that part of me and to stop. But at the end of the day, I love helping people. I've always been in a career where I'm working with people and I'm helping people, and that's where I find my most fulfillment.
Excellent. Stacy, thank you so much for taking time out. Before we get out of the door here, for anyone that wants to pick up your book, anyone that wants to reach out, anyone wants to learn more about yours, the best place to go?
Well, the book is available on Amazon, and it's called Damaged Goods, a devotional for the slightly imperfect. It is a Christian devotional. And then I have a website, StacyKayeBooks.com, and so you can do that. I'm on all of the socials, so you can find me on Stacy Kaye or Stacy Kaye Books on pretty much everything. So I'm not hard to find.
Okay, excellent. Stacy, thank you so much for taking time out today. Have a great holiday season and best of luck with the book and everything else.
You too. You have a wonderful Merry Christmas, and thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.